Today I want to address something that everybody talks about a lot, which is what we call daddy issues. Daddy issues have something to do with neglect and abandonment of children by their fathers. So it can be physical abandonment or absenteeism, or it can be daddy is at home but he is not an emotionally safe space for the children. The experience with dad, or the lack of experience with dad, you will see it coming out in both the man and the woman are experiencing relationships, especially in their early 20s. For the girls, you will find them looking for daddy figures. They will either date older men, they will want men who can take care of them. They don't want relationships with young men their own age. They tend to gravitate towards men who are older, who can offer authority, maybe even provision. They feel safe with the older men because they have that lack of emotional security that they didn't get with their fathers. They will look for men who are older and able to provide for them, but also controlling men who have authority and they can control them, because that control signifies love. It signifies care. It signifies that they can see them. And so you have to be very careful as a young lady into your early 20s when you are looking for romance and you are looking for love, that if you tend to gravitate towards men who are controlling, or men who are older than you, or men who can take care of you, then you need to ask yourself, what is the trauma bond there? And it could be that the woundedness as a child, where you didn't experience affection and you didn't experience care and nurture from your father, that's what you're trying to feed. Now, there is also the issue of staying in bad relationships for women and also for men. What happens is that because the individual who you have chosen to be in a relationship with, they meet the need for belonging, which is very important need in your life as a human being. If he meets the need of belonging with you, he accepts you. When the abuse happens, you're not going to be able to walk away, because the loss of the belongingness will leave another gaping hole in you. So you kind of get yourself into that codependent space where you stay in the relationship even when you are not being treated right. Why do people do that? Because when you have father wound, your sense of worth is taken away, or it doesn't develop. And so you are going to look for that. If you find it with an individual, you will kind of feel lucky, you will feel good, and you will stay regardless of what you experience with that person, because that is what you are looking for and that is what is important. So what happens? You are constantly being treated wrongly, you are constantly being abused, whether it is verbal or even physical. You are constantly being controlled and not allowed to blossom, and you are not able to leave because you really need this connection. And that is why when you are in this volatile relationship, or you are moving from one relationship to another, you are not aware that you are looking for your father. And you need to figure that out. You need to sit down and ask yourself, why do I keep repeating the same patterns in relationships? Or why do I stay with a person who constantly disrespects me, abuses me, and even devalues me, but I still stay? It's because the lack of feelings of belonging with your daddy caused you to feel that you do not have what it takes to be a person of worth. Now, number two, for men, when you had a father who wounded you emotionally, whether it was because he was very critical of you, his standards of who you needed to become were so high, and you constantly felt as a young boy that you could never get the approval of your father, then what happens? As you grow older, you begin to have a low sense of self-worth, and what you start to do is to prove yourself. Now, depending on your personality, once you go into the world as a young man, because of feeling you are not good enough and having those low moments where there is sadness, where there is self-doubt, you will turn it inward and you will begin to look for ways that you're going to increase the feeling of goodness. And that is how habits that become addictive, they form. So you start smoking something, it makes you feel great. You start drinking, it reduces the amount of sadness that you feel. So you develop certain ways of being that are coping mechanisms to avoid the pain you feel from the rejection from your father. Something else that develops in young men, if they were rejected or abandoned by their father, or they were overly criticized, overly punished, and verbal abuse was there, what happens to them? They internalize a lot of anger. So when they internalize anger, what is going to happen? Either they are going to go into depressive states where they engage in behaviors that are self-destructive, or they are going to be very aggressive towards either their spouses. They become aggressive towards workmates or anybody who seems like they are going to show any disapproval to them. So the other thing that happens, they develop emotional independence where their attachment styles are very dismissive. They don't know how to deal with emotions. They don't know how to be close, to be vulnerable. There is a lot of shame also that comes with that because of the fact that they develop certain self-destructive behaviors to cope. For instance, they drink and they feel guilty about the outcomes of the drinking. They might get involved in sexual perversive activities and they feel so guilty about that. They may have a lot of hit and run sexual experiences, or they have relationships where they cannot commit. So they tend to come in, and then when they feel like it's closing in, that they have to make a commitment, they run away. Why? Because the criticism they got from their father caused them to think they are not good enough. They will never become a man of value. So you find that their style of touching in relationships is either dismissive, where they come in but then they go away. They are not able to connect and to be vulnerable. So you will find if they are in a relationship with a person who is emotional, they shun away, they dismiss those emotions. They are not able to have empathy. If they are empathetic, they are very fearful, and they will come out as people who cannot trust. They are not going to be able to trust. Their mantra will be that I am not good, neither are you. I cannot be trusted, neither can I trust you. So it becomes very difficult to develop relationships that are empowering. And so the father wound will look like that for young men who experienced rejection, abandonment, physical abuse, verbal abuse from their fathers. They will have very low levels of confidence in being a man. They can either be very aggressive, or they will be very passive aggressive, or they will be very avoidant of any relationships that are going to be relationships where they are close with other people. So vulnerability for them is not safe at all. When we are talking about parental wounding, what is taken away from you is a normal development to feel safe within yourself and in the world. So until I see you next time, feel free to reach out to me. My website is on the screen. So until next time, continue to live by design.